board for February 28th, 2024. Pam has told me that she is under the weather and has lost her voice most of the moderating duties. We'll start with the tenants. Bob Romer.
Here.
Austin Grenner.
Here.
Jim Barr.
Here.
Mike Lau.
Here.
And Eric Nealand.
Here.
And Mike Gore, chair, is present. Okay. Light agenda tonight, which is great. First item up is A&R for 22 West Berlin Road for Steve and Maureen Daly. Do we have someone representing the applicant here tonight?
Yes, my name is Kevin Conover. I'm from David Ross Associates, and I'm presenting this plan this evening.
Great, go ahead.
What we're proposing this evening is we're creating two lots on the southeasterly side of West Berlin Road. Lots 1 and 2. Each one of them have in excess of 4.5 acres. And they also have in excess of the 200-foot requirement for a lot frontage. They're pretty basic. They're pretty much rectangles, which is unusual these days. But on lot 2, it has a house, a barn, and a carriage houseway in the back of the property. We're looking for A&R endorsement this evening.
Okay, I did take a look at this. Pretty straightforward. So lot 2 is the existing property, and you're subdividing that out, and lot 1 will become the new property.
That is correct.
Do you have and so the plan is for a new single house on lot 1?
That is the plan as right now. Again, we just want to separate it from the other structures on the property, and this is the process to do that.
The edge of lot 1 on the right side there, that doesn't abut up against Wattaquatic Hill Road, does it? Is there other property there?
No, it's a stone wall. There's a small portion of Wattaquatic Hill Road, which is in I guess the northerly corner of lot number 1. It only has about 42 feet of frontage on Wattaquatic.
Okay, and so the point would be for egress from a driveway on West Berlin Road then?
Absolutely.
If that's okay. Okay, yeah, the A&R seemed pretty straightforward to me. It conforms to everything. Any members of the board have questions or comments?
Yeah, on the remaining land, do you currently have plans for that? And what's the frontage on that remaining land?
Sure. So as indicated on the plan, the remaining frontage on West Berlin Road is in excess of 436 feet of frontage, exactly where that arrow is pointing. They are proposing a single-family house on that remaining land.
On lot 3?
On the remaining land, correct.
So lot, okay, so lot 2 is what the current structures, and those are potentially being torn down, right?
That is my understanding. Not torn down, maybe just moved.
Oh, moved, okay. Oh, because of historic reasons.
Correct.
And so then lot 1, the plan is to build a new house?
Eventually, like I said, the purpose of this plan is to basically create a lot 2 in specifics, to encompass the existing structures on the property. Lot 1, again, they could develop that if they want. Plenty of area and frontage to do so.
And then the current owners are going to build on the remaining land.
That is correct.
And there's no current plans to subdivide that remaining land up more. It's intended just for potentially 3 housing lots.
Nope. At this time, they're just proposing one single-family house on that lot. We've actually submitted a septic plan to the Board of Health that indicates the location of the house, and the septic system is located further down the hill near Old Bay Road. Yeah, just one single house on that remaining land.
Okay.
And obviously, if they wanted to divide it, they'd have to come back to the planning board to create another A&R. But at this time, they're only doing one house.
Yeah, so it's 200 feet of frontage, so I guess you could divide it into two, although I don't know if you can meet shape factors or I'm not sure. You probably could actually with 400 feet, but
I can say I can say with certainty right now they're doing a single family house on that lot and using
Okay.
the frontage on West Bear Hill as both access and frontage.
okay. Yeah, that's good. I know there was some fears about what that land would become, so this seems like a pretty good plan.
It's a beautiful piece of property. It really is.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, one of the most scenic in Bolton.
It's incredible.
Any other comments for the board on the A&R before us tonight? No, hearing none. I will make a motion to approve the A&R for 22 West Berlin Road.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Robert Romer,
aye.
Austin Grenner,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
Eric Nealand,
Aye.
and Mike Gore, aye. Okay, motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
You too. Take care. Okay, second item of business tonight is the review of the cottage district overlay bylaw from Mr. Randall Rent. So Randall, good to see you again. It's only been a few weeks, but thank you for taking the time to review that cottage bylaw. And hopefully everyone got a chance to look at Randall's comments, but Randall, maybe you submitted a summary sheet. So maybe if you want to just talk about kind of quickly what your overall points were, and maybe just give us some broad thoughts on the bylaw in general, if you had any.
My take on this was really in response to what I heard at our last meeting. And that was that the bylaw was opposed by a number of townspeople who were concerned about the density and about the draw on the water supply as it might affect them. So I saw those as the two most important points perhaps to address. Secondarily, but still important, I think in terms of presenting something that the public would like to see are some more design standards to give them a higher degree of comfort that the cottage overlay will look the way they would expect, a new neighborhood to look here in New England, that it would have certain architectural features in terms of front porches and variation on gable ends and ridge lines. They would have neighborhood greens. They would have trees planted along the streets. That they would not have parking that is perpendicular to the curb, as you'd find in a housing project, but parallel to the street, as you'd find in a traditional neighborhood. So it's trying to locate half a dozen or more points that would resonate with people and say, well, we like this a whole lot better now that we see it shaped in this way. Everything I've put down is simply an idea. I'm not, I don't live in Bolton. I don't have a dog in this fight. These are ideas that I think might help you move this forward. One of the ideas was to treat them as the Forest and Open Space Planned Residential District that gives the overall development a very attractive and I think sustainable form, rather than just whacking the land up into house lots and streets. It would be divided sensitively and carefully into a neighborhood component and an open space component, which I think that it would appeal to a great number of people in Bolton. Whether or not you like all of the meeting tonight is to discuss what you think of the specifics. I've suggested that the open space percentage be increased from 33 to 50%, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Talked about reducing the density from being a 2- and 4-fold increase to be a 2- and 3-fold increase. That's just basically to respond to people's concerns that their wells would dry up if you had a 4-fold increase. The hydrological component of the bylaw recommendation, I think, is an important one that speaks to that concern, that all of the septic wastes, the wastewater, be retained on the property and not be discharged off property. Sometimes packaged treatment plants divert the wastewater once it's treated, and they push it downstream into a creek or brook or a river, and then it doesn't do anything for the hydrology of the property at all. The rain gardens, infiltration basins for the stormwater. I think all of that can help speak to the concerns that people have stated in the past town meeting on this.
There were, so thanks for that, Bob, Randall, sorry. There were a few things that stuck out at me. So reducing the multiplier from 4 to 3, increasing the open space to 50%, and reducing the dwelling size from 2,400 to 2,000 square feet. So just for a little bit of context, kind of all those numbers came from a lot of the developers that we spoke with about kind of what would incentivize them to build a project like this. And so, my only concern with if you're reducing those numbers and increasing the open space just to reduce the number of units that are available for the water issue, I mean, that's fine. But I mean, I think as long as we had the science behind us to justify, hey, even with a 4-fold multiplier, and we do cap the number of units somewhere. I think it was 100. Yeah.
Yeah, 100.
So we had that as sort of a relief valve to do it. I mean, kind of as long as we had the, something to go back at people with on the water usage. And even talking about discharging into a stream or stuff like that, like I don't even think anyone ever assumed that would be an issue, although I guess you would need a sewage treatment plant of some sort with this many, if it's that dense. But I don't know. I mean, Eric, you were probably closest to this and are familiar with those, how and why we came up with those particular numbers. What do you think about reducing them?
Yeah, the 4X definitely was, and again, sorry, I'm in the car, so I don't have my camera on, but the 4X was definitely from the developer saying, well, this is what it would take for them to build it. The 2,400, I do agree with, I prefer smaller units. I think they gave us the 2,400 number just because
yeah, we fought them on that, and they were like, no, this is what people want. But yeah, I agree. Like I thought that, I mean, it's bigger than my house. So.
Yeah,
Right,
I
exactly.
agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, like I think 2,000 would be fine because that's kind of what we want, right? We don't want them to come and make it huge. Like maybe we need some type of range, like some percentage could be above 2,000 or something, like maybe 10 or 20%, or like have some larger units, but a bulk of them be like under 2,000. But I do think the 4X came from the developer, so we probably have to break it back open and talk to people again. Of course, they're going to push for more, but
yeah, it's also possible that obviously since we did this bylaw, the housing market went insane and,
Yep.
you know, I'm, maybe those numbers are perfectly, you know, reasonable for developers at this point. And
Yeah.
they would build. I mean, I would love to see, you know, Randall, I know you included some other, some of the photographs from other places. Do you have a general sense of what the size of those houses, like the one in Michigan, the Westwood Common, you know, that has a, so we have this neighborhood in Bolton, today, and I'm gonna blank on the name of it. Eric, what's the one up past Cobham? Bolton Woods Way. And it's a lot like that. They're probably what, 1,600 square foot houses, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, we have a couple of friends who are in that neighborhood. It's an awesome neighborhood, and it's smaller houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Randall, I guess the question was, do you have a, you know, it's 2000, do you get the feeling that some of these developments get built with houses that on that size frame?
2,000 figure and the threefold versus fourfold were purely responses to the public concern about their water supplies drying up, which I don't believe is a real possibility. I'm fine leaving those numbers as they are. Bear in mind that the ordinance, apparently with developers, okay, limits these homes to 2 bedrooms. I mean, how many square feet do you need in a 2-bedroom house? I don't have a problem bringing it back to 2,400. I don't have a problem bringing it back to a fourfold increase. Those were driven by my desire to present something to the town meeting that they could say, oh, well, you've gone away and you've listened to us. We were concerned about the water supply and we can see what you're doing to meet our concerns. But I would agree with you that I don't think those concerns have a very firm footing.
I have a quick question. When we established these numbers for the cottage overlay district, how many developers did we talk with? Was it just one, or was there a consensus among several that we asked?
It was at least 2 or 3, plus a realtor or 2. Eric may remember better, but it was a fair number of people that we spoke with.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was definitely 2 developers and at least 1 or 2 realtors. I do agree going to the 50% open space. I think that would sell it better, and they should be able to get done what they need to get done with that.
Well, and if the goal is to move phosphid to 50% anyway, then keeping this in line with that, you know, does make sense.
But if we're talking about 55 or older, I think we're looking at people who are really interested in smaller dwellings at this point. You know, and living in a house happily with 2 kids for a number of years at well below 2,000, I might add. You know, with the increased density and the lack of site development that would be required for this, it strikes me that 2,000 is not unreasonable, and it's probably a different perspective than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, I do agree with that, and I would definitely be comfortable reducing it to 2,000. I mean, again, we want to get, you know, some input, but I think that's totally reasonable.
Yeah, I think we need to think of the particular audience, not necessarily town meeting, but development and purchasers or renters that would be involved in this. And I think if you look at the rental and ownership for people retired 55 and above, it's a little bit different than it used to be.
So that was one thing that they didn't want it to be limited to over 55. They didn't want to limit their market. And we did look at numbers, and you've probably looked at the same numbers with the master plan, that just limiting the bedrooms and like condo style potential or just smaller units just kind of gets less kids. You just naturally end up with more first-time home buyers who maybe have either younger non-school age kids or older people, you know, empty nesters. You kind of naturally tend towards that way, but they didn't want to like restrict it just to, you know, keep their buyers
So
at a max.
Eric, that was kind of my recollection as well, and I thought that we initially started the 55 and over path, and then we were either
Yeah.
told we couldn't do that, and we pulled it. But I do see it's in the version that Randall reviewed for us. So maybe there was
Well,
like
I think the
was there a
over
last
55
minute?
part of the over 55 way is like, if you restrict it to over 55, it doesn't count towards the affordable housing inventory. So that's
Okay.
kind of why we shied away from it too. But also the developers didn't necessarily want to be restricted to that.
But we did, I mean, we have it in there, and it's 100%
Oh.
deed restricted.
Oh, so we do.
So we either
Yeah,
left
I
it
don't
in
know.
there, or we don't have the
I
latest
forget.
version. 'Cause
I'd have to look at the history then.
I mean, I guess for Randall's purposes, it's not totally relevant. And again, the point tonight isn't really to like hash out the whole, cottage overlay again. I think that's what this next year is going to be for us. If the board decides to bring cottage overlay back before town, for not this town meeting, a follow-on one.
Yeah.
Right. So
I
this is-
actually like to not have it be over 55 to give first-time home buyers something smaller to buy in town, you know?
I agree with that. I mean, that's,
Yeah, and I'm not sure how you do that. I think it's a great idea.
how you do what, Bob?
How you address basically the projected age demographics of younger people and older people. We have all sorts of legislation that addresses age 55 and above, but to Eric's point, we really don't have much that we have any basis on which to address younger people.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be an interesting conversation. I agree with it. I'm just not sure how to do it.
Well, I mean, just removing the 55 age restriction from this, I think that's a good start. Now,
Well, and if you look at like townhouses, it tends to be, I think what we found is younger people without kids or really young, just newborn, 0 to 5. And when when people start to get multiple kids, they, tend to move into like the colonial with a bigger backyard type. I think it kind of naturally tends that way.
In any case, I think we have to look at that. We said that our objective is to have reasonably priced houses and houses into which people age 55 and above, either in town or from outside, can move into, and younger people can make it their first home. But at the same time, if you go right back up to the very top of the proposed regulation, we talk about a tax advantage. Well, we're bringing more people in, but this is to alleviate, the burden to town taxpayers. And I think we need to be careful about that, because if we don't address it properly to the right demographic, we have lots more kids. Not that I don't like
our
kids.
concern when we did this. We said like, oh, there's gonna be more kids in the school system. And we kind of subsequently did sort of an informal study of a lot of the new housing developments, and even like the giant houses like Central Estates and some of the other parts and subdivisions in town, and found that the average number of kids was still like pretty small.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
It wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be.
No.
And maybe this becomes, maybe this really has two parts to it, and there's one multiplier if it's 55 plus age restricted, and there's a different multiplier if it's not. I mean, that's something we could look into.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's worth considering again.
Well, and I totally agree, Bob, that it's, we should be providing housing for young families as well as older people who want to, retire and place in town. But again, we're sort of getting beyond everything here. the purpose of this is kind of just to get some more feedback from Randall about, what he thought with the, as it was written, anything else we might have left off.
Okay, so you're right, let's move on.
I actually have one quick question I was hoping to ask Randall. Are there any case studies for towns that are similar to Bolton where there was one of these cottage overlay developments that neighboring, I guess, abutters had issues with water? Maybe there are some cases where we can point to, or maybe there's a lack of that. And I'm just curious if there's any data on this.
Honestly, I don't know of any studies that have focused on the impact of increasing density and the impact on the water supplies. It's a good question, but I don't know that it's been addressed. Maybe some planners at MAPC that look at the entire region and have been around for a long time, they may have heard that. So I'd recommend that your staff perhaps reach out to MAPC and ask that question. I had a question about whether this was going to be a single family development mode, or whether there would be 2-family homes, 3-family homes, 4-family homes. I'm not pushing either way, but I was unclear because the ordinance, I
Yeah,
didn't.
we specifically left it vague in that area to leave it up to the developer. Like, we were open to townhouse type units, or we were open to single units. And we were gonna do it kind of by design, I guess.
Mhm.
We tried to leave it a little bit up to the developer on that front, just to try not to limit it so much that it wouldn't work for a developer.
Yeah, well, anything that is on a lot, a single family home that's on a lot 60 feet or maybe 55 feet or narrower, or any 2-family home, or any 3-family home, or any 4-family home, in my view, and I'm speaking as a planner, I feel rather strongly that they should all be accessed from the back in terms of the garages. I've seen many developers do a lot of projects where they stick the parking in the front. They either do perpendicular parking at grade with no garages, or they stick a garage in front of the house. And on a narrow lot, or in a 2-family home or a 3-family home, when you stick a garage in the front, it really makes it look like New Jersey and not like New England. And I come from New Jersey, so I think I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I've seen those type of developments where it's just row after, just garage door and garage door and garage door. It does get
Exactly.
quick.
Those, and yeah, they don't look great.
Yeah.
And developers will
That's a
build
good-
them
that's a good
every day
point.
of the week.
What did we say about garages? I know we called out a parking
I don't
bylaw,
think
but-
we, I don't think we mentioned anything about garages, and it's a really good point, because that is quite ugly.
It is. At the same time, though, I certainly wouldn't want to ban garages.
Yeah,
Just being in New England and having older people, if that's who ends up living there, you don't want to have them scraping off their cars in the morning.
No, I'm in favor of garages, believe me.
Okay.
Just
But
that
just
they
not in
shouldn't-
front of the
Yeah.
They shouldn't be in front of the house.
Yeah.
house.
I
I can come up with a
definitely
little bit of wording, which I'll email to Pamela tomorrow or Friday, which very simple wording, which basically says, if it's a front-facing garage door facing the street, it needs to be recessed back 12 or 15 feet from the plane of the house.
Yeah.
And if you don't, the other alternative is to put the garage facing the back, where there would be a common driveway or a back lane, a private road that would circle behind the homes, behind the townhomes, behind the duplexes, behind the 3-family homes, so that the garages are not dominating the street. You drive down the street and you want to see houses. you don't want to see garages at a high density because the garages will then immediately dominate the entire streetscape. And developers don't mind. They'll build it that way and you'll be stuck with it for the next 100 years.
I mean, you might end up with more impervious then, like a lot of, I don't know, we'd have to look at that, but I agree with your point in general, yeah.
I guess one of the things that keeps being brought up is the whole issue of water and, by the way, sewer. And I think if you take into consideration the fact that these are not lots that are going to get all of their water from under the square footage of the lot on which the structure is built, and in fact, as you've written it, there's going to be a lot of land out there controlled by the homeowners association, and that lot and that land can be used for water as well. So when it comes down to water resources, it's the water resource of the whole area of the development, not under each individual house. And you're looking at a hydrological analysis of the area to preclude problems with water. So yes, I've been involved in water and I'm concerned about it, but having spent a fair amount of time looking at it in Bolton, with this kind of development, with the provisos that are included in it, I'm not concerned. The other part of that is the parking, and that's a two-edged sword, actually. If you run, and I absolutely agree that you don't want perpendicular parking to the road. Again, welcome to New Jersey. But if we're going to have the roads designed in such a way that they're not going to be accepted by the town and will remain in the purview of the homeowners association, my concern would be that making them wide enough to have alternate side of the street parking and also emergency vehicle access is going to end up with very large roads, and we need to think about that.
And again, here in town, we have Pond Side on Main Street, which for the old timers in town was Crystal Springs Campground. And that is a 55 plus development. That is a private road. That's more townhouse style than cottage style, but like that gives a sense for what we have. So, we could look at that development to see if, are there any issues with emergency vehicles going through that? I haven't heard of any, but it's definitely a
Michael,
good thing. Yeah.
Pardon my ignorance, do they have sidewalks on that?
I think they do, but I've actually never, I always mean to drive down into it, but I've actually never done it. It's right down the road from me. I drive past it every day, but.
Yeah. But I think those are the two things that, I think it's really important that for a community like this, you do have pedestrian access around the community.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I think even in ours, we had required a sidewalk, didn't we? I
Right,
think
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we need to look at the unintended consequences of parking, road access, and sidewalks to what the implications are to the character of the road.
100%. And I mean, this is, a good project for the board is kind of as you're driving around. I know Boxborough has a couple new developments. As if you're bored someday, drive through a development and sort of see, like, oh, do those house styles, do those look good? Do those look like something that would fit in Bolton? Does that parking look like a disaster? I mean, we all kind of drive around every day and can take a look at this, and we can use that to sort of influence what we want to do with this ultimately.
When it comes to that, how much involvement would there be from the design review board? And what are the teeth do those kind of things have?
So I forget the exact wording, but so like I said, we left like styles of units, whether it's single or double, like kind of vague, but I think we did, and I don't remember, I didn't reread it, but I think we did say that the design review board would look at it and make sure that it met kind of the aesthetics of the town.
Well, we said that the planning board would, but that was kind of my point.
And
Yeah, DRB.
reports to us, so we usually
Yeah,
just
right.
kind of farm that out to them. Randall, is there, so I know you put in the paragraph about the hydrological water balance design, which again was to sort of go after the big thing that we got dinged on back then. Is it worth putting in, like, is there some sort of, like, I don't know, is there a perk test for water? Like the way we say a soil drains, can you do some sort of a test to validate, water in an area?
There are such a thing as, perk tests for recharge basins. So if you want to have a stormwater basin that is going to recharge your aquifer, you need to put it on soils which are pretty much as good as the soils for a septic system. If you put it on clay or ledge, it's not going to recharge in the same way, to the same degree. Which is one reason why I like to identify the soils for their capability for infiltration as the first step in the design process. That's, the 4-step design process. The first step is to locate the areas you don't want to have built upon. And you don't want to build upon your best soils for septics or your best soils for stormwater. So you make sure that those areas are set aside and reserved for those uses. Here in the cottage overlay, where you'd probably have shared septic systems, that makes all the sense in the world, because you can say the best soils for septics are going to be in the open space where you're going to have your shared septic. And ditto for your stormwater infiltration basins and galleries. They should be located where the soils are well drained and deep, nice and permeable.
It's interesting you bring that up on both counts, both access to water and disposal of wastewater. The EPA has an interesting perspective. Well, DEP, can't say EPA. And that is, when it comes to water, they would much prefer to have public water supplies with control, because they're very concerned about what people are drinking and don't really believe that private wells are a good idea, although they have to live with it. And they, in terms of recharge, their perspective is sort of a much, much larger perspective, in that they would like to see collection of waste, sewage water, run through a uniform and controlled system, so that they know what's going through it and what's going back in the way of recharge. But to your, the counter to that is, with a good hydrological study and an evaluation of regional drawdown with test wells, you can tell an awful lot about whether you can support the kind of development that we're talking about here. And secondly, recharge really doesn't happen in a local area if you have a wastewater treatment plant. So there are two philosophies going on here. I personally feel that with reasonable control and reasonable design in a residential area, you really don't have problems with well-maintained septic systems and even package plants. And that with a good hydrological study, you really shouldn't have trouble with water. And I'm not saying that it's automatic. You may have trouble, but the hydrological study and drawdown will tell you that.
Well, and Bob, that was what I was kind of getting at, was like, if we had something in there about having a developer do some sort of hydrological drawdown study to say what's in it. So that would be something that we'd want to add in there.
Yep.
I think we kind of specifically left out calling out both water supply and sewage treatment, because basically the units would be so close together that they would have to do public water supply and public septic or sewer treatment of some sort, all on site. And so I don't know what else we need to say about that, but I think we intentionally left that out the first time around because, you know, it doesn't meet our bylaws for a single family house, right? Like the well needs to be however many 100 feet away from the septic system. They obviously
Yep.
can't meet any of those things here. So I think we just left it up to them to say, you guys come up with something that is approved by the Board of Health.
But I think it'd be well worthwhile talking to an Neshoba Associated Regional Board of Health to understand that a little bit better. Bill
Totally,
Brooks
yeah.
has,
Yep.
you know, not only knows the rules, but he knows the science and what's evolving in the science.
Yep, agreed. Okay, good stuff. Anything else? Any other questions we have for Randall?
I think the final point of contention was that the overlay ends up, and basically we said it's the whole town in any lot, I think whatever was bigger than 10 or 20 acres.
Eric, you
So
broke
I don't know,
up
we have
that
to like
first part.
reevaluate.
Can you repeat what you first said?
Oh, sorry. Am I better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It was just where the overlay actually ends up. And I think we said it was the whole town, like any lot bigger than so many acres. So I guess we just have to look at that so people have a better idea of like where it would go or where it could go.
Well, that's, you know, in terms of where that might happen, I know that BSC consultants for the master plan have done a detailed review of remaining developable land and soil characteristics in Bolton. And I think that would be worth looking at.
Yeah, like if we had a map of exactly the lots that it could go in versus just saying, like giving like any lot above so many, like maybe that's what we have to do.
Yeah, and we've got that, Eric.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
we have the GIS studies for that.
Because it was just like another kind of like unknown, like that people latched onto.
Yep. And that is now known. So yeah, that's a good point.
But what's the order of magnitude for how many lots are left? Is it a dozen or
Not a
more?
lot.
More? Okay. So this is kind of a small number of potential lots then.
Yeah, it really, I
Okay.
mean, the best time to have started this was 40 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, we don't want to pass a bylaw that no one uses. So
Right,
the goal
exactly.
of this is to get someone to actually build these properties. I mean, I think these houses look great, and I
Yeah.
think there's a demand for them in town. So,
Yeah.
we shouldn't be looking at this as some sort of NIMBYism, as we want people to use this bylaw and make use of it.
Yeah,
So.
I was just like saying, like it was just kind of like open where exactly it could go, just if we just defined it better is all.
Yeah. But I mean, to Bob's point, if there just aren't a lot of lots left where this could go, then
Yeah.
go somewhere.
Consider the
Well, and-
alternative.
The bylaw
Yeah.
could reference that map in that study that Bob just mentioned, was maybe the comprehensive plan or future land use study, and make it part of this bylaw to say that this would be applied to parcels that appear on this map in this other study.
Yeah, that's a possibility, but I think we need to look at the map, and find out how realistic that is. It's sort of like spot zoning,
Well, and also if the number we used last time, if there isn't many places for it to actually happen, maybe we have to decrease that number of where it
Yeah.
could go, like the
Yeah,
lot
from
size.
10 to 5 or something.
Yeah, right.
So that's a piece of homework that we can do very easily. I think certainly I can talk to BSC about that. I know I worked with them on that. And I know that that Rebecca and the conservation agent has that in the GIS now. And they're both very, very good at consolidating data like that so that we can look at it very quickly.
Okay, did anyone else have questions or comments for Randall?
No, good suggestions.
Yeah, definitely.
So we were-
Yeah,
Appreciate
we're
it.
gonna keep
this
the-
was a
the
good
4-fold.
discussion, yeah.
Do I understand correctly that we're gonna keep the 4-fold increase?
Well,
I'd have
I
no
think,
problem with it.
yeah, for now, I think we will. Again, we're not, the goal of the meeting tonight really wasn't to hash out what the bylaw is going to look like when we represent it. It was really to get your feedback from your experience to say, hey, does anything look egregious with this, or is there anything that we're missing with this bylaw? And
Or
I
unsaleable.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I
So-
think, yeah, I've addressed that. What was missing was some standards on what the buildings would look like, shade trees, sidewalks, garage orientation, which I'll flesh out and send back to Pamela in a few days. Because I think it's important that this look like a village or a cottage neighborhood and not just a project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah, and I think that hydrological aspect of it will take away, if we've done it properly, a lot of the excuses that were presented the last time around.
Agreed. Okay, Randall, thank you for coming tonight and giving us your feedback here. We'll yeah, I'm sure we'll be in touch later on. Well, we'll be in touch for the rest of the
Duration.
comprehensive stuff.
Yeah, and if
But,
someone could send me a copy of the PowerPoint that was used last time, I'll do an updated version of that you could draw from, use or blend. But I've got some other images and some ideas that I could plug into that PowerPoint, which will no doubt go through a few other iterations before the next town meeting in 13 months or so.
yeah,
Do we know
Okay.
who has that PowerPoint, Eric?
it may be on Pam's computer. We'll have to
Okay.
figure it out. I know it exists somewhere.
Yeah.
But okay.
Good. Well, I'll be glad to fold that in to my work, and I'm glad we could meet tonight because I'm going to be in 2 weeks' time. I'm going away for about a month, so it's good timing.
All right. Well,
Great.
we appreciate you making the time. So thank you, Randall, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Randall.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, that was it for our agenda tonight. Did anyone on the board have anything they want to discuss?
Hey, yeah, two things, and it's all aligned with this. There's another book that Randall wrote that I had and really didn't realize how useful it was. And it's called Conservation Design for Subdivisions, and it really nicely lays out, what can be done given the kind of regulations that we currently live with. That's one of them. And the other, I don't know why I didn't know about it beforehand, but MAPC put together a very, very nice paper on this whole approach, which I will be happy to send the link to. But it was done in about 2000, I believe. So this is not a new concept.
On cottage overlays, you mean, Bob?
Well, no, on the whole conservation development approach, residential development
Okay.
with environmental concerns.
Yeah.
So they've been pushing that for a long time. And somehow, other than hearing of it from Lincoln, I had never heard of it before.
Yeah, good to know. Yeah, go ahead and send that along.
Yep.
Anyone else have anything they wanted to talk about?
Does anybody want to see this this book? This is it. Well, you can't see it. But I'll be glad to stick that in the container in front of the town hall if anybody's interested.
Sounds good. Okay, if there's no other business, I think our next meeting, take a quick look. I think we are March 13th. I'll have to double check that, but I think it's March 13th, second week in March. So if there is no other discussion, I will make a motion to adjourn for this evening.
Seconded.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, everybody, thanks for meeting tonight. Pam, I hope you're feeling better, and we'll talk later on.
Good night,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.